My family stopped being home a long time ago. A child diagnosed with behavioral issues, a wife who no longer understands me, and an attic where my son once peed on the only keepsakes I had left from my parents. Tonight I'm sitting in the car, unsure if I even have the courage to go back. I never really wanted kids, not because I hate children, but because I saw far too clearly the price you pay for a tiny human being: time, freedom, personal space, and even you stop being you. When my wife and I got engaged, she knew that. I never hid it. My answer had always been maybe one, but definitely not more. She nodded, as if that made sense, as if I wouldn't change my mind as time went on. But then time did go on. Friends started having kids. Some bragged, some complained. Some were glowing with joy, some looked drained to the bone. And me, watching from the sidelines, could only think, this looks unbearable. Even the so-called well-behaved kids left their parents exhausted. By then, my answer had become a firm no, not because I was selfish, but because I didn't want to give up my entire life for something I wasn't even sure I could love enough. Then my wife's sister died. Suddenly. Tragically. A freak accident no one could have predicted. From that moment on, family became sacred to my wife. She changed. She was no longer the woman who once nodded at my just one kid philosophy. She clung to the idea of giving her parents a grandchild. She looked at her mom and dad, now left with only one daughter, and I understood. The grief had carved out a hole inside her, and the only thing she thought could fill it was a child. I didn't blame her. I understood how losing someone could make you desperate to hold on to something lasting. What I didn't understand was why I said yes. Maybe I was weak. Maybe I was tired of saying no. Maybe I was stupid enough to believe in promises. Her family is persuasive. They painted the perfect picture. Her parents would sell their farm, move just a few houses down from us. They'd help every single day. They were still young, barely 50, healthy, energetic, ready to take care of the child for us. They told me I wouldn't have to sacrifice much at all. Just be the classic dad. Go to work, show up for the holidays, take some pictures, cuddle the kid at bedtime. The sweet stuff, the easy stuff. Everything else? The support team would take care of it. And I believed them. Because how do you say no when your wife, your in-laws, a funeral, and a broken dream of a grandchild crash over you like an emotional tsunami? I said yes. We made plans. I started looking at Disney family photos, started imagining road trips, cozy dinners. I tried to stop being scared. I tried to stop being selfish. I thought, maybe I was wrong. Maybe this is my chance to fix everything. But what I didn't know was that I had just opened the door to a nightmare that would last over a decade. Because some mistakes can't be undone. And some decisions, even when made out of love, can quietly kill off pieces of who you are without anyone even noticing. When my child was born, I told myself, this is it. The moment everything changes. My wife cried. My mother-in-law held the baby like the world had just been reborn. My father-in-law turned to pat me on the back, his eyes glistening with emotion. And I just stood there, feeling both strange and scared, yet strangely hopeful. Maybe the thing I never wanted could actually be the best thing that ever happened to me. Who knows? In the first few months, I tried to play the role everyone had scripted for me. I went to work on time, came home for dinner, took pictures for Facebook, held my baby every night until they fell asleep. My wife was busy and exhausted, just like every new mom. The grandparents were around a lot in the beginning, changing diapers, rocking the baby to sleep, helping with meals. It felt like everything was going exactly according to the plan I had been convinced to believe in. But then time passed, and piece by piece, the perfect picture began to fall apart. When my child turned 3, the first signs appeared. It wasn't just hyperactivity, it was disruption in a way that didn't make sense. No self control, no respect for authority, no reaction to rewards or consequences. Everything became a challenge. It started with pouring milk all over the floor to see if mommy would get mad. Then came hiding my car keys because I wanted you to stay home. When scolded, my child didn't cry. They smiled, looked straight into my eyes and smiled. We took them to be evaluated, then to a psychologist, then to a behavior specialist. After months of assessments, the diagnosis came: ODD, Oppositional Defiant Disorder. I didn't know how to feel. Was it relief, finally having a name for it? Or despair, realizing that name didn't come with a clear cure? The doctor explained, this isn't a condition caused by trauma or developmental delay. ODD is a disorder where the child deliberately defies, thrives on conflict, and finds purpose in pushing boundaries. Not out of pain, not due to a lack of love, simply because they want to. And from that moment on, I stopped being the ideal father. I became the fire watch, the extinguisher, the man who tensed up every day, trying to make sure his child didn't hurt anyone else or themselves. And that support system I was promised, it vanished. The grandparents began citing other obligations, poor health, or not vibing with today's kids. They visited once a month, stayed for a few hours, then left like they'd never made any promises. My wife gradually wore down too. The understanding we once shared was eroded by screaming, school meetings, scratch marks on her arms, and the day our child defecated in class just to get attention. I used to believe I'd be supported, that we'd get through it together. But the same people who nudged me into fatherhood slowly stepped back like they were never really part of my life. And I, a man who once nodded because too many people said, it'll be fine, now just sit quietly in my car, wondering how many years of my life I've traded just to survive in a family I once believed was mine. Maybe the worst part of living with a child who has ODD isn't the violent outbursts. It's the constant unpredictability and the fact that you never, ever get to rest. These past few years, I've lived like a wound-up clock, always ticking, never unwinding. My son doesn't scream or break things all the time, but his silence isn't peaceful either. In fact, it's in those quiet moments, when he's just sitting still, that I feel the most afraid. Because something destructive always follows. I once caught him slashing his mother's shirt while she napped because she told me not to eat chocolate at night. Another time, he hid his grandfather's blood pressure meds to see what would happen if he didn't take them. He once filled the neighbor's cat water bowl with sand and burst out laughing when they caught him. My wife still tries to believe he's just a kid. But how am I supposed to believe that when this 10-year-old can look me dead in the eye and say, in a voice colder than ice, I know you're tired of me. You can disappear if you want. I don't blame him. I know deep down somewhere, he's in pain too. But me, a man with nothing left in the tank, I'm not capable of being the healer anymore. And then came today, the breaking point. I came home after a long shift, my brain thick with exhaustion. On the way to the house, I saw our neighbors, Mr. and Mrs. Murphy, wiping down their doorknob. Their faces were tight with discomfort, eyes avoiding mine. I hadn't even had a chance to ask what was going on before my son, standing in the front yard, shouted, "They deserve to get sick. They held my package all day before giving it back." I froze. When I got inside and tried explaining to him that people aren't obligated to deliver your things immediately, he said nothing. I thought maybe he understood. But less than 10 minutes later, I heard my wife scream from the attic. I ran. What I saw felt like a bomb exploding in my chest. The old banker's box, the one where I kept everything I had left from my parents, was torn to shreds and soaked in urine. My mother's handwritten letters, my father's graduation photo, a piece of his old shirt that I'd kept because it still carried his scent, now soaked, crumpled, destroyed beyond recognition. I didn't yell, I didn't hit, I didn't say a single word. I just turned around, walked downstairs, grabbed the car keys, and left. Now I'm here, sitting in the car. It's long past dark. The nearby park is almost empty, just faint yellow streetlights and the soft sound of insects on a spring night. I don't know if I'll go back. I don't even know if, by tomorrow, I'll still be able to call myself a father. Some things break without a sound anyone else can hear, and some lines, once crossed, leave no road back. As I sat in the car, surrounded by the thick darkness of night, I opened my phone and stared at my contact list. There was the therapist, the behavior specialist, my child's special education teacher, even the family counselor who had worked with us for 2 whole years. I looked at each name and felt a kind of weariness that seemed to erode my bones. Because I had called every one of them, multiple times. I had written pages-long emails. I had stayed up night after night reading books, signing up for courses, researching the most cutting-edge behavior intervention programs. I had followed every suggestion from friends, acquaintances, even strangers on parenting forums. I had tried everything, even when deep down, I knew there was nothing left that could make a difference. We had spent tens, maybe even hundreds of thousands of dollars on therapy. From ABA, Applied Behavior Analysis, to CBT, Cognitive Behavioral Therapy. There was a time I worked 6 days a week, double shifts, just to afford those 60-minute sessions where my child would sometimes flat out refuse to participate. I used to think, if I'm patient enough, dedicated enough, maybe they'll feel my love and change. But love isn't magic. It doesn't turn cruelty into kindness. It doesn't soften defiance with a simple hug. And when every method failed, I found myself circling back to the very first question: why did I have a child in the first place? The answer came like a blade. I never truly wanted to. I knew it. My wife knew it. But I said yes. Not because my beliefs had changed, but because I'd been persuaded. I gave in. I wanted to make others happy. I wasn't strong enough to stand by my own no. I thought, if everyone keeps saying it'll all be fine, then maybe, just maybe, it would be. I lied to myself, and the cost wasn't just the sleepless nights, the family arguments, or the urine-soaked memories stored in the attic. The real cost was me. I lost myself. I lost my peace. I lost the ability to believe that the future could ever get better. Every morning I wake up without hope. All I see is an endless war. Someone once told me, your child doesn't need a perfect dad, just a present one. But I was present, and yet I slowly became invisible. I taught my child everything I could, but the one thing I couldn't teach was how to love, because I was struggling to love life itself. I walked blindly into fatherhood thinking it was something I could figure out along the way. But fatherhood isn't like learning to drive. You can't just practice and adjust later. You have to know for sure that you want it, because once a child is here, there is no rewind button. And that's the truth I didn't have the courage to face when I still had time. I'm not a victim. I'm the one who crossed the line, even with trembling hands. And now, sitting here in this car, my eyes sunken and my chest heavy like something is pressing down on it, I finally understand. True regret doesn't come from failure. It comes from knowing better and doing it anyway. I don't know where I'll sleep tonight. I'm not even sure if I'll be able to step through that front door again tomorrow morning. But there's one thing I know with absolute clarity. Just as surely as my child will act out again, my wife will feel hopeless again, and that family, will continue to move through days that feel like a repeating version of hell. I used to think that a father's greatest fear was not being able to protect his child, but now I realize there's an even more haunting fear, knowing deep down that you never truly wanted to be a father in the first place, and then spending the rest of your life bound to that decision. No one tied me down. No one forced me to sign any agreement to become a parent. I picked up the pen myself. The only problem was, I didn't do it out of love. I didn't do it out of conviction. I did it out of weakness, out of a desire to please my wife, to avoid arguments, to not feel guilty in front of her parents. Now I see it clearly. That wasn't kindness, it was surrender. And that surrender brought into this world a child I am not strong enough to love completely. A child for whom, even when I say, I love you, there's still a bitterness in my chest, of exhaustion, of damage I never healed. Being a father from that place, no one is happy. Not the child, not my wife, not even me. I'm not writing this to place blame. I don't want advice. I don't need anyone telling me to stay strong. I have been strong, at least silently, shouldering the weight of an entire belief system that was flawed from the start. All I want is to say this to those who are unsure, to the young lovers, to the couples planning to have children. Don't let anyone make that decision for you. Children are not the next step. They're not the perfect finishing touch to build an ideal family. They're not a remedy for your grief, nor a gift to please your parents, your relatives, or society. Children are people, whole complex individuals who will demand every ounce of your energy, every minute of your attention, every drop of your patience and sincerity. If you cannot look a child in the eyes and say, no matter what you become, I will show up for you, then please don't bring one into this world. Because if what you really want is a cute, controllable version of yourself, and when the child turns out to be different, you find yourself drained, panicked, and eventually resentful. No one, not even you, deserves to live in a home filled with that kind of emotion. I'm 45 years old. I don't know how much longer I'll live, but I do know this. If someone ever asks me for just one piece of advice about parenthood, I won't talk about parenting techniques or child development strategies. I'll simply ask them one question. Do you truly want to be a parent, or are you just trying to please someone else? If you can't immediately and confidently answer yes, then stop. Not because you're a bad person, but because you deserve to live a life that's true to you. And that unborn child, they deserve a beginning rooted in love, not in compromise. I don't know if I have the strength to start over, but I hope someone out there reading this will find the courage to start right from the very beginning. If you're hesitating about whether or not to become a parent, if you're feeling pressure from your family, from society, from all those promises that everything will work out, I hope you pause, sit down, look yourself in the mirror, and ask, do I truly want this? Or am I just trying not to disappoint anyone? Don't let today's compromise become the chain that binds you for the rest of your life. Don't let a child grow up under the gaze of someone who is never ready to love them fully. And don't let sacrifice turn into a rusty blade, slow, silent, but certain, cutting through every relationship you once held dear. Parenthood isn't an obligation. It's a choice, and that choice should begin with real love, not guilt or fear of being left behind. I wasn't brave enough to say no from the start. But you still have time. That's the end of today's story. If it spoke to you, please leave a comment, like, share, and subscribe to support us in creating more videos like this. Thank you for listening. See you next time.